When you think BMW, you think of the ultimate driving machine. You think of a premium German brand with high quality materials. Or maybe you think of the iconic kidney grille. Or maybe you think of... Or perhaps you think of the insanely expensive maintenance costs and unreliability. But the BMW I'm going to show you today is absolutely none of those things, other than maybe the ultimate driving machine. Ladies and gentlemen, may I present to you the 2018 BMW 320i xDrive sedan, the ultimate budget-friendly, somewhat luxurious, somewhat well-spec'd BMW that you can literally buy for the price of less than a used Toyota Corolla. So this is the BMW F30 generation. That's the chassis code of this, which means I believe this is the 6th generation 3 Series. Feel free to correct me on that, but I think this is one of the most gorgeous BMW 3 Series ever made, other than the A46. I love the line that just goes across there. It's got the iconic Hofmeister kink. The door handles go right within the body lines. It's just, oh, it's so beautiful. And really, this was the last generation before the kidney grills got absolutely massive, but it's modern enough that it has features like full LED headlights, it has fog lights, I love this thing. It's even got the xDrive all-wheel drive system. That was like an extra $2,000 from the factory. I know a lot of people like the rear-wheel drive better, but xDrive, where I live, oh, it's so nice. You may be asking, why a 320i? Let me show you guys under the hood. Now, the 320i indicates a 2-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder, right? But it gets really confusing because the 330i, which was the same year, also had a 2-liter 4-cylinder. So what's this one then? Well, that one had 248 horsepower. This one, get ready for it, has an entire 181 horsepower. I know, mind-blowing amounts of power. Yeah, I know it's not that powerful, but it does have more horsepower than a Toyota Corolla, and honestly, in around town driving, it doesn't feel that slow. And then it's mated to this 8-speed ZF automatic. I know the shifter's from like 2007, but smoothest automatic transmission I've ever driven. Also, bonus points for the hood struts. Well done, BMW. So this is what BMW calls the LCI, or life cycle impulse, which is basically fancy BMW terminology for a facelift. And so you got some upgrades, like you got these full LED taillights, and this is the base model, by the way. This is the lowest trim level of the 3 Series that you could buy. You had the 320i, the 330i, and the legendary 340i. And I think pretty much all of them in the LCI came with these LED taillights that I'm aware of, because the halogens, they look okay, but these are just so nice. And even though it is a 320i, it's actually got some really nice features that were spec'd from the factory, things that weren't even standard on some higher spec'd 340is. The first thing is the blind spot monitor. So if there's someone in your blind spot, this glows like an amber color, and it's in a fantastic spot because if I close the door, I can see it right here. It's not kind of hidden in the sunburnt reflection of my mirror, if that makes sense. Super duper nice feature, and I really wish they kept it over here. Heated steering wheel is freaking awesome. Love to see that. I know that wasn't a standard feature on these, and I know it's somewhat expensive to retrofit. It isn't impossible, but nice to see it standard on here, or at least optioned from the factory on here. I can't say I've seen a single F30 with adaptive cruise control. I mean, most of them didn't come with it. You could option it, but I mean, almost nobody did, and I literally cannot find one, except for the wagons for some reason, no matter how hard I try. So you just get these blanks on every single F30. And another really neat thing is it's got this dynamic traction control. So you press this button and it kind of makes the xDrive drive a little bit better in the snow. Super helpful there. But I kind of wish that they left this open, because on the models that don't have this row of buttons, you got a nice little glove box down here. So you could literally put stuff down here and hide it. What's going on behind here that you can't have that the rest of the way? It has automatic headlights, and oh my goodness, this dial feels so nice. That's PTSD for BMW owners. And then there's a blank switch right here, but this is for the European spec fog lights, and if I wiggle that, you can actually almost push in that button and it'll turn on the fog lights if you code that in. There are videos on YouTube how to do it. I'm not going to do it on this car, obviously, but that's still so cool. This is one of the most timeless gauge clusters ever made. I mean, it's just simple. It's got temp gauge, tacho, speedo, fuel gauge, and then even then it's got some like little digital elements in there. Like if I turn the car on, it'll put all the warning lights, it'll put all the indicators over here, and if I press the BC button, you can cycle through a bunch of different stuff. So it's a super functional screen, even though they're analog gauges. You could get a digital gauge cluster through the 6WB option, but it really didn't add much, and honestly, these are just gonna age way better. This dashboard is honestly so nice. It's very timeless. It's new enough that it has like the modern technology. This actually is a touchscreen. It's new enough in the production run that these were converted to touchscreen sometime during the 2017 production cycle, this being a 2018, but it also had a dial where you could control it through the iDrive. So you really get the best of both here. Okay, so normally I don't love cup holders in this position, and I don't usually love it when they miss teeth off the cup holders, but they kind of have like a little grip on the inside, so it holds it okay. And then this really tall cup right here, it doesn't run into the dashboard enough that it annoys me, and I can just pull it in and out pretty easily. So even though this commits like every cup holder sin, and as far as cars go, this is not terrible. It's really not as bad as they think, although having a 12-volt socket right where your drinks are gonna go, that is just not the smartest idea. So I guess that's why BMW did put this little door here to hide your cup holders away for when you really want to go for that spirited driving with all your 181 horsepower. It's a criminally underrated feature. The touch-sensitive / shortcut buttons on the iDrive, I think they got rid of these in the newer cars, but oh my goodness. Isn't this so nice? You can just slide across, and it's like, it's touch sensitive, but it's still analog, old school. I mean, it's got a CD player, has FM and AM buttons, so it's definitely showing its age just a little bit, but oh my goodness, I love the analog. BMW, why did you get rid of the dials and the buttons in the LCI G20? Why would you do this to us? That is like a hate crime, and I won't forgive you for it until you put the buttons back in the BMW. To me, this dash layout reminds me a lot of something like a BMW E39 or E46. It has like all the radio components down here, but it's still very, very modern. It's, in my opinion, the perfect blend. The AC controls are super easy to use. They're dual zone. You can jump from low to high really quickly. I know it's not on, but it's super nice having a dial here. Heated seats. I do wish ventilated seats were available on the F30, but they were never available. And then all these buttons are easy to use. Air directions, super easy. The only thing that drives me nuts, there's no sync button. But hey, that's a small trade-off when you have the adjustable vents. You can make these two vents here a separate temperature from the rest of it. So if you want to cool yourself off while having the rest of the heat on in the car, you can change just these. I don't know why that's a feature, but BMW owners swear by this feature. It is incredible. Also, the lock button's in the middle. And that leaves you with a very clean door panel. Yeah, I know it's not as nice as the higher end ones with the leather stitching. This is actually, I think it's called Sensatech, where it's like a pleather kind of thing, but it still feels very nice, and it's held up very well over 50,000 miles. Again, this car's 6 years old, and 50,000 miles later, this looks almost brand new. The only thing that might start to happen is the soft touch might start to deteriorate on the back. On this car, it's actually not terrible at all, but there are aftermarket solutions to fix that. And then the door pockets, they feel great. They have soft touch, they're felt lined, and they're pretty large, which is so surprising for a German car. And again, having that lock button in the middle means you have less buttons on the door panel. It's so much cleaner. Yes, it's a pain in the butt if you just want to reach in and unlock the back door, but it's just a beautiful door panel. And it's all soft touch. I just love how this door handle looks like it's just floating here. Like it's not sitting on anything whatsoever, and then you can just move it with ease, obviously pulling twice since it's a BMW. And then the physical door locks are just awesome as well. And those are still there on the new cars. I do have one minor gripe about the 320i compared to the other F30s, and it's these base model seats. It's not necessarily the upholstery that's a problem to me. They actually are pretty nice, and they've held up really well, like I said, with the door panels, but they just are lacking in the way of bolster support. My 2012 Volkswagen Jetta has so much more bolster support in the seats, and they're even perforated, which is awesome. They never came with them perforated, but I've been in a 440i. I actually did another video on that because that car was freaking awesome. And I was quite surprised to see that even though the seat looked almost the same from pictures, it actually had a lot more support. This is almost a flat cushion, and this doesn't even have any kind of thigh adjustment. If they had put like the 330i seats in this would be near perfect. I will show you some cool things though. This has an adjustable headrest, so you can go up and down just like in the higher end models. And then they're even power, so you can go up and down both ways, you can go back and forth, and then there's 2 stages of memory seats. Although what's weird is that the E46 had 3 stages of middle seats. Beamer, why did you get rid of the 3rd memory setting? I mean, I know it's not that useful, but still, it's a cost-cutting thing nonetheless. And while I have the camera down here, I might as well show you guys the pedals, because the floor-mounted pedals and the brakes, they're just in the perfect spot. And that's even more so when you get the 6-speed manual version of this, because yes, they did make a 6-speed manual in the F30. It was the last one in the US to have the manual transmission besides the M cars. But the floor-mounted pedal, it's insanely responsive and awesome. And I may as well segue onto the driving experience before I take a look at the back seat or the trunk space or anything like that. So the 3 Series is a little controversial for one major thing, and I just want to get it out of the way so we can talk about the rest of the driving impressions of the 320i. The steering is incredibly numb and light. Now, this is a disappointment to some, especially coming from the E90, because these were the first generation to have the much lighter and easier to use electric power steering, so I can almost turn it with one finger. No, it's not Toyota Camry light, even yeah, this plastic steering wheel. It's not, I'll get into that in a minute, but it's not as light as a Toyota Camry, but it's still numb enough to call it numb, if that makes sense. Now, in my opinion, putting it into sport mode, yes, we have Sport and Eco Pro. No one uses Eco Pro, but if we put it into sport mode, it does tighten the steering up just a little bit. It does give you a bit of that feeling back. And don't get me wrong, I think that the M series, the M Sportline cars, I think they had a little more steering feel, especially the 330s and 340s. They had a bit nicer setups. The adaptive setup was obviously awesome, which this doesn't have, but still, putting it into sport mode definitely helps. And then another nice thing, I'll show you real quick. If you go into sport mode, you go to configure sport mode, you can change it to chassis, drivetrain, or both. So it's a bit configurable, almost like an M car, which is kind of cool, especially since these are like, what, $15,000 to $20,000? This feels like it's out of a $50,000 car, even though this was $40,000 brand new. And since this is a car that's in my family, I may as well tell you about how reliable it's been at 50,000 miles. That's probably what you guys are really wanting to hear. My camera's not focusing. So far, the only really major thing was that my family wasn't putting 91 fuel in this car, which BMW wants you to do. And in those 5 years that we weren't putting 91 in, it took a couple cold winter nights and the car would misfire and shut off. But all it would take is just restarting the car and driving it again. But that was only in cold weather. That was the only time that it would happen. Not really a big deal. And then all we did was put some additive in it. And then actually they went right back to putting 87. Personally, I wouldn't do that. And I know a lot of you guys wouldn't, but putting 87 is not going to kill this B46 engine, especially since we're not running a lot of power through the block. It's a detuned version. Obviously, the regular B46, it's B48 internationally, it's B46 in the US, makes about 248 horsepower in the F30 cars on the higher models, so it's not terrible. Yes, I know, I'm running it and I haven't warmed up the engine yet. I'm sorry, okay? And don't worry, that's just an oil change interval. Yes, we are going to get the oil change done soon, I promise. But otherwise, the 320i has been literally fantastic. No complaints here. I don't want to jinx that because this is a great, affordable, fun to drive, actually relatively fun to drive. I know the steering's light, but it handles really good. It's a great sedan, driving experience-wise. So I might as well go into a little bit of the acceleration. How does the 181 horsepower feel from a car that should be much faster? It's not terrible. I mean, I drive a Volkswagen Jetta that has about 170 horsepower. That's got an NA motor. This definitely kicks you back in your seat just a little bit more. It doesn't feel lethargically slow getting on the highway. It has, I think it's about a 7.5 second 0 to 60. So if you're doing more around town driving, this is the one you actually want to go for because it actually gets significantly better gas mileage. I know it says 24.7 miles to the gallon, but we have been sitting here for quite a while. And even with this much left on the tank, just under a quarter tank, that's nearly 50 miles, which is pretty good. If we do the math, that's about 400 miles to a tank, which considering this isn't even a hybrid, that's pretty good. And then the brake pedal. The brake pedal is incredibly sensitive on this, but once you get used to it, you're gonna love having that much control over the brake pedal. It has a lot of bite to it. They're not super strong brakes, but they're great for this caliber of car. With 180 horsepower, you don't need crazy brakes, but it's nice to have that much braking feel. And like I said before, the blind spots make this thing just a dream to drive on interstates. All right, some other things. Soft touch material here, some cheaper plastic here. Nice that there's no gloss black. You got some matte black here. You got a manual handbrake. I absolutely love that part. You have a relatively small armrest. It's only about that deep once you're inside. It has a USB port. Nothing too crazy. Again, more of the Sensatech. One thing that annoys me is it doesn't actually have a latch. You just pull it open and it's assisted. So that means this console is actually pushing on my finger right now. So you just let it go and it'll just open. Obviously, I'm not going to do that because there's stuff in here. But anyway, you get the idea. And then this mirror from the factory has a compass. How awesome is that? And then there's a couple more things up here. You got your LED lights, super nice. They're LED and they fade in and out. There's a sunroof so you can let all the light in. Absolutely beautiful. I know a panoramic would be nice, but for a sedan, this is all you need. But are you ready for my biggest disappointment of the BMW F30? I know that you don't need a lot of it, but this does not extend. That is definitely annoying, but again, because there's so little distance from here to here, that isn't the worst thing in the world. Also, I wish you could adjust the seatbelts, but hey, it's a BMW thing. All right, I'm gonna change pace for a second because it is getting really, really hot in the car. So I might as well show you the trunk. Now, it's not a power trunk, but it's kind of like hydraulically assisted. So when you pop the trunk, it just lifts it up for you. Even on a hill, it'll just stay up like that. I love that feature. But once you're inside, it's got some nice felt lining. It has all the space inside of here. Not the most I've ever seen. I think my Jetta has a slightly bigger trunk, but you got space for your first aid kit. You can put you got access to like your fuse box and your batteries. You got more storage nets here. You have a hidden 12-volt socket, which I actually did not know about. That's pretty cool. But we pop this open and we have not a space saver spare, unfortunately, but we do have some space for some extra little things that people probably won't be peering toward. I mean, if you want to hide your pool floaties and windshield covers and all of that, then there you go. The biggest disappointment to me about the base model 3 Series though, and really just for F30s in general, is that the folding seats were an option. And this doesn't have it. So in other words, you can't fold the seats on your BMW 3 Series. That is the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen. I don't think they do that anymore on the G20s, luckily, but to me, that's a little ridiculous. I'm sure there's a retrofit out there somewhere, but come on, BMW, my Jetta has folding seats. I've been in a Nissan Versa with folding seats as standard. What is going on there? It's not that hard to add, I'm sure. Oh look, a little dome light. How cool is that? Alrighty, before we wrap it up, I want to show you guys the back seat real quick because this is one of the biggest contentions of people choosing to buy a 3 Series. People think the back seat's going to be quite small. Well, I'm about 5'8", I want to say. This seat's about in my position where I drive, and I actually have a lot more legroom than I thought I would. Almost about the same as like an Audi A4 or Mercedes C-Class. And if I point the camera toward my lovely face yet again, as you can see, I actually have quite a bit of headroom back here too. Definitely a lot more than something like the 4 Series Grand Coupe, which again, I made a video on that, trying to take a look and see how the coupe compared to the sedan as far as headroom goes. There's not a terrible difference, but this definitely provides more headroom. Now back here, you got the same door panels as the front. You have your own AC 12-volt socket. You got door pockets you got backseat pockets for both the driver and passenger. You got really small door pockets, actually, not terribly large. Let's see if I can fit my hand in there, just barely. And then the center armrest is actually quite cool because even though it's got the Sensatech, it has these really cool pop open cup holders. I've always really appreciated that, but over the years, they kind of feel a little cheap now, a little flimsy, especially from many, many years of use. And honestly, there isn't a ton of bolster support, but I imagine these wouldn't be too bad for a long drive or a road trip. So one more thing I want to mention before I go, this car actually has push button start, but oddly enough, it doesn't have the comfort access door handles. I am curious if you can retrofit that since the key fob is just a regular wireless remote. But honestly, that's not a deal breaker for me, and that probably isn't going to be a deal breaker for most people once you see that these vehicles can be found for $15,000 to $20,000. You can buy a Nissan Versa for the same price as this. And the good news is, I think this is going to prove to be reliable over a long period of time. This thing is absolutely beautiful. The engines have been proven to be really, really reliable, so much that Toyota's even used them on the Supra. I know that's what everybody says, but that is a pretty cool thing. And before we go, I just want to show you guys these awesome LED headlights. I absolutely love this. This was like the last of the Halo style LEDs before they went away. Let's go ahead and end this video by just taking a look at the gorgeous gorgeous front end of this BMW. I know the M Sport bumper looks a little bit better. I know you could add that if you wanted to on your 320i, but if you're looking for something cheap, if you're looking for a commuter car to get you from A to B in a very luxurious fashion, you want to feel like you're in a BMW, you want the handling, you want the chassis, you want the rear wheel drive, you want the X-Drive maybe if you live in a colder climate, but you don't want to splurge on the engine because you do a lot of in-town driving, and maybe you don't want to go to jail, maybe you don't want to get a speeding ticket, then the 320i, honestly, this is the car to go for. So I really hope you guys learned something new about the BMW F30, especially this beautiful LCI 320 model that I have right here. But anyways, maybe I should get one for myself. Well, stay tuned for that. But anyways, I really appreciate y'all for watching. Thank you so much. And let me know if you guys want to see more Beamer content, because I definitely want to get one for myself at some point, maybe in a year or two, and then maybe I can do some of my own stuff to my very own BMW. This sure is getting me excited. But anyways, thank you for watching, and I will see you all in the very next video, hopefully very, very soon. But anyways, I hope you guys drive safe in your ultimate driving machine. All right, the video's over. All right, I'm gonna go now.